So the Nintendo Switch 2 launch day is just 10 days away from the time that I'm making this video, and there is a ton of excitement for it. We've already got images now that are coming out from stores that are starting to get their Nintendo Switch 2s, so it's just a very happy time right now, and a lot of people are really looking forward to jumping into Nintendo's next generation. And one thing that I've seen a lot of people talking about pretty much ever since the Nintendo Switch 2 was revealed is people comparing it to the current gen systems with like the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5. Now, I feel like anybody with a brain and common sense would know that the Nintendo Switch 2 was not going to be as powerful as those systems. Just think about the form factor. The Nintendo Switch 2 is going to be like this tablet that you hold in your hand and that you can put inside of a dock, compared to like these giant systems like the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X. Obviously, those giant systems that take up so much space on a shelf and a desk and everything are going to be able to fit in much more to make them significantly more powerful than what Nintendo could do with a Switch 2. And so obviously by having more power, the games are going to run better on those systems. However, the one thing that I've really noticed with the Nintendo Switch 2, with all of the stuff that we've seen about it leading up to this launch, is that the Nintendo Switch 2 has really kind of exceeded my expectations for what this system is capable of. And even though the Nintendo Switch 2 isn't going to be anywhere near the power and performance of an Xbox Series X or PlayStation 5, the fact that it's even able to get the games that are appearing on those types of systems and still run them pretty decently on the tablet-like system that it is already insanely impressive. And I just want to talk about that inside of this video with some comparisons to other versions of these types of games. And I didn't make these comparisons myself, so I will have all of the videos that I'm using here linked below in the description, so you can definitely go and watch them in their entirety. But I'm also going to upload this video in 4K so that you can see it in the best visual fidelity possible, so you should be able to set this video to 4K to see everything in the best possible quality. But one of the games that I really want to talk about is a game that is going to be available at the Nintendo Switch 2 launch, and that is Street Fighter 6. So Street Fighter 6 is available on PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5, and it is going to be coming to the Nintendo Switch 2 as well. And we can see here in some of these comparison clips that it shows us what it looks like on the PlayStation 5 and the PlayStation 4, and then also the Nintendo Switch 2, and I think it's really kind of insanely impressive to see that the Nintendo Switch 2 version of this game is still holding up really well, even compared to the PlayStation 5 version, which, like I said, we know the PS5 is already significantly more powerful than the Switch 2, but just the fact that Street Fighter 6 already looks really good on the Switch 2 and also the PlayStation 5 really kind of shows you what the Nintendo Switch 2 is capable of. Honestly, there's even some cases with this game where I prefer how it looks like on the Switch 2 over the PlayStation 5. If we look at this picture here of Chun-Li, I feel like we actually see some more detail in her hair here on the Nintendo Switch 2, where there's actually some more detail with all of her hair strands compared to what it looks like on the PS5. With Ryu here, it looks like there's a little bit of more detail that we can see on the Nintendo Switch 2 with like the facial hair and also the eyebrows compared to the PS5 version. I even think that the coloring is a little bit better too, so yeah, there's some cases here where I actually feel like I even prefer how it looks like on the Switch 2 over the significantly more powerful system, and that's honestly kind of insane. One of the biggest things that we've heard about in terms of rumors about the Nintendo Switch 2 was that it was going to be in line with the performance of a PlayStation 4 Pro when it comes to how the system can do in docked mode. And even if we look at comparisons with like PlayStation 4 Pro games, we can actually see the Nintendo Switch 2 is even outperforming that, where like if we take a look here at Cyberpunk 2077, here is the PlayStation 4 Pro version of that game, as well as the Nintendo Switch 2 version, and you can just see here the Nintendo Switch 2 version has better lighting. It looks like there's even more car models that are here like rendering into the visuals, and it just looks overall better quality than what you were getting with the game on the PS4 Pro, which really kind of shows you that the Nintendo Switch 2 is even more capable than what we've been kind of hearing about with those rumors, and it's a really good system that's going to be able to stand on its own very well compared to all of these other modern systems, and it's really just going to come down to the developer with how good they're going to be at optimizing their games and really getting them to run the best that they can on this system. One of my favorite games of all time, Final Fantasy VII Remake, is going to be coming to the Nintendo Switch 2, and just in comparison to the PlayStation 5 version, you can see right here that the Nintendo Switch 2 version still looks so good, and it's still standing up so well even in comparison to a significantly more powerful system, and the fact that this is happening now for a Nintendo system is just incredible, because it really means now that the Nintendo Switch 2 is going to be able to get so many of these big releases now that are coming out on all sorts of different platforms, platforms, and that's just really good because it's really going to allow for a lot of other people to be able to play these games, especially if you can only have a Nintendo system. And obviously now if we do pause here, like for example, if we pause here and if we take a look at like Cloud's hair compared to like Tifa's hair and stuff like that, you can see here that on the Nintendo Switch 2, it is a little bit softer and kind of fuzzier compared to how it looks like on the PlayStation 5. But to be honest with you guys, this difference isn't really going to be super noticeable unless you sit really close to where you play your games. If you mainly play games at a desk and the monitor is pretty close to you, then sure, if you play this game on the PlayStation 5 and then play it on the Nintendo Switch 2, you're probably going to notice that the overall sharpness of the game on the Switch 2 isn't as sharp as it is on the PlayStation 5, and just the overall details of like the textures and the hair and things like that aren't really going to be as good as they are on the PS5. But if you're like a lot of people where if you just kind of get cozy on your couch and you sit a couple of feet away from your TV, you're not really going to be noticing these details like so much easier than if you were sitting close to a monitor, to the point where for a lot of people, it isn't even going to be that noticeable, and the Switch 2 version of this game is still going to look incredible. Unless there's a drastic difference like one is in 720p and the other is in 4K, for the most part resolution isn't going to be super noticeable from a distance, but really the only thing that you are going to be able to kind of tell a difference in is the frame rate. I feel like frame rate is definitely easier to tell the difference with when you're playing a game, and even with the Nintendo Switch 2, a good example for this I think would be Mario Kart World, where if you play Mario Kart World multiplayer with 2 people and you have that as like the split screen, the split screen for 2 players is going to be 60 FPS, so you can see right here with the gameplay that I'm showing on screen, the game looks really smooth, it's running really well with the split screen that's going on right now between these 2 players. But if I switch now to this version of the game where it's a split screen with 4 players, that's actually going to cut down the FPS now to 30 FPS, so you can kind of notice here that compared to what it was looking like before, the game isn't running as smoothly because now it's in 30 FPS. But maybe if you want an example with a single player game, here's one of my favorite video games of all time, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and this is the version of the game that is running in 30 FPS, and you might be able to see right here that the game is still pretty nice, and you can see right here that in terms of like kind of running around and just kind of moving the camera, and also some of the combat gameplay that I'm having on screen, the game is still running pretty well, but it's not really running super smooth, because that's what it's kind of like with 30 FPS, especially for a lot of these action-packed games like Mario Kart and this game right here, where there's a lot of stuff happening with like the attacks that you're doing and stuff like that. But now here is the exact same game with the 60 FPS mode enabled, and you might be able to kind of notice now that even if you can't tell right away, you might be able to just kind of see that the game is running smoother compared to the footage that I was showing before. Like, it's definitely looking much smoother now, moving the camera around, even the combat gameplay that you're seeing right here with like doing attacks and stuff, it just feels much more smoother and more responsive than kind of what I was showing you before, and that's really kind of the difference between 30 FPS and 60 FPS. I feel like this is definitely much more noticeable, especially when you have the controller in your hand and you're playing it. But there's honestly some people who can't tell the difference between 30 FPS and 60 FPS, and maybe that's you, where even in the examples that I just showed you right here, both of the games still looked fine to you and you couldn't tell at all that one of them was running smoother. And I guess if that's the case for you, then a lot of these 30 FPS games that are going to be coming to the Nintendo Switch 2 aren't going to affect you at all, and you're still going to be able to have a really good time with them, even if they're not looking like as best as they could be on the PS5, and that's honestly going to be even better for you. And honestly with me too, like, I can definitely still play 30 FPS games. It's not like they become unplayable for me. Right now with all the Xenoblade games, that's pretty much how I've been playing them on the Nintendo Switch, but I do hope that they do get upgraded to 60 FPS on the Switch too. But really the big thing here is that even with all the games that I've shown you, Street Fighter 6, Cyberpunk 2077, Final Fantasy VII Remake, all of these games still look really good on the Nintendo Switch 2, and they still hold up really well even in comparison to the PlayStation 5 versions of the game, and it really kind of shows you how good these modern games can run on Nintendo Switch 2. And that's really kind of the best thing now, is that so many games that are coming to the current Nintendo Switch that are also on the PS5 need to be drastically downscaled and reduced to the point where it's honestly laughable how bad they look on the current Nintendo Switch in order to get them to work, and those days are now going to be over. I don't know if you guys have seen how Mortal Kombat 1 looks on the PlayStation 5 in comparison to the current Nintendo Switch version of the game, and I mean, I'll have like some versions of that on screen for you guys right now so that you can see in comparison like really how downgraded the game is, to the point where it doesn't even look like the same game anymore. At least with the comparisons that I showed you between the Nintendo Switch 2 and the PlayStation 5 version of the games, you can see that both of the games still look very similar to each other, and what you get on the Nintendo Switch 2 is still very similar to what the game looks like on the PlayStation 5, and it's not like what you're seeing right here where it just feels like a completely different game with how drastically reduced and downgraded the character models and the textures and everything need to be with a game like Mortal Kombat 1. So really the biggest thing now to be excited for is that those days of having to see these games get so reduced to appear on a Nintendo system are now going to be over, and really a lot of these big multi-platform games should finally be able to look really good and still come to a Nintendo system. And so yeah, the Nintendo Switch 2 has definitely exceeded my expectations for what this system is capable of, and the fact that we're about to go into an entire new generation of Nintendo where you're going to have first-party developers from Nintendo taking full advantage of the system with some amazing games that they're going to make, alongside getting these awesome third-party games that are going to be multi-platform and now coming to the Switch 2 as well. It's just going to be a very exciting time now for the next 6 to 7 years, and I'm honestly so excited now to go into the Nintendo Switch 2 generation. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed the video, definitely be sure to click that like button and also subscribe to the channel as well. I'm definitely gonna have some more videos talking about the Nintendo Switch 2, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on that. Comment down below and let me know what you think about all of this. Are you excited now to see the full potential of the Nintendo Switch 2 and what it's going to be able to do? How do you feel about it all? Definitely be sure to comment down below and let me know. But if you don't have anything to say about it, just comment your favorite emoji down below for some engagement. I would really appreciate it. Go follow me on Twitter at Aero so you can be featured in videos, and also join my Discord server as well. We've got a bunch of people in there who are always talking about Nintendo and Smash Bros and Pokemon, so definitely be sure to join that. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching.